Most people have no idea what's happening right now with XRP. They're staring at the price like it's telling the whole story, when the real story, it is happening underneath the surface, and it is way bigger than anyone realizes. So let's break this down the right way. Hello everyone and welcome back to the show. I hope you're having an amazing day. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. If you're coming back, hit that thumbs up button. This is the channel that gives you the real crypto intelligence before the headlines catch up. And today we're talking about the biggest misconception in the XRP ecosystem, why the ETFs right now aren't moving price, and why the next wave absolutely will. Because look, here's the part that mainstream keeps missing. Everything happening around XRP is structural, not emotional. Every major liquidity cycle in modern history has been driven by one thing: a shift in plumbing, not a narrative, not a meme, a change in market structure. And spot XRP ETFs, they are that shift. They're the dividing line between XRP of the past and the XRP the institutions are about to meet for the very first time. Right now, the products that people keep pointing at are future ETFs. They're synthetic. They're repricing instruments, nothing more. They don't touch XRP. They don't buy it. They don't remove it from the supply. They just roll contracts over and over in an endless loop that never interacts with the asset itself. So of course the price doesn't move. No one is actually buying anything. But spot ETFs, an entirely different universe. A spot ETF has to acquire real XRP, not IOUs, not derivative exposure, actual units pulled off of exchanges and locked into custody. Every dollar that flows in, it forces buying. Every shared issue, it represents XRP that cannot be traded anymore. And that's where the supply shock begins, because XRP doesn't have the supply that people thinks it does. The circulating number, it's meaningless. Throw it out the damn window. What matters is the available supply of XRP, and that is insanely small. Exchanges are almost dry. Coinbase's XRP reserves, they've cratered. Bitstamp, Kraken, Binance, Uphold, Gemini, all the same story. Over the counter desk, they are running thin. Long-term holders don't budge unless price gets uncomfortable. Meanwhile, institutions, they're positioning for regulated inflows. That combination is what creates a pressure zone. It doesn't matter how you feel about XRP. The math, it doesn't care. And that's before we even talk about the regulatory shift that changed the entire playing field. Paul Atkins stepping in signaled a total pivot. We're not in enforcement mode anymore like what Jay Clayton and Gary Gensler were running. We are now in guidance mode. The SEC, the CFTC, and Treasury are all aligned in a way that we have never seen before. XRP futures on a CME launched in May of 2025. That was the trigger that regulators needed to greenlight the spot filings. And once the 6-month requirement was satisfied, guess what? The floodgates opened. Bitwise, Franklin, Wisdom Tree, Grayscale, they all came in fast because the writing was finally on the wall. XRP, it's spot ETF moment. Now, I want you to look at the approval windows that are coming up. October 18th, 25th, that was your first approval window when we started ETFs go live, right? They got delayed a little bit, but that's okay. The SEC, they weren't at work. The government was shut down. It happens. We move on. We get pushed back a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. We have ETFs. That is what matters. Your assets that do not have ETFs, they're going to go away. Your assets that don't have spot ETFs, those are going to be the same assets that will forever be coupled to Bitcoin. They will never decouple. They will never break away. ETFs are the breaking point. ETFs will allow these assets to move by themselves. If everything always followed Bitcoin, we wouldn't have a market. You would just buy Bitcoin. But the assets that have ETFs, they will be able to beat to their own drum. Now let's talk about demand from these ETFs. Spot ETFs don't launch with 20 million in a prayer. They launch with hundreds of millions, sometimes billions. Why? Because institutions allocate through them automatically. Even conservative models, they put your first year inflows for XRP around 2 to 4 billion. 2 to 4 billion, folks. More aggressive ones, they put your first month inflows, they believe they were going to be anywhere from 5 to 8 billion dollars. That's insane. And none of that supply exists at the current prices. None of it. And then to make this even crazier, ETF demand, that's not your only demand. Think about that. We have utility demand coming in parallel. Ripple's central bank digital currency stack, it's moving. Palau, Montenegro, Jordan, Georgia, already active. Japan and Brazil, farther along than most people think. RLUSD is rolling out. Tokenized assets, they're coming. Enterprise settlement rails, treasury automation. This is the back-end utility, not front-facing hype. And utility, guess what it does? It creates a continuous demand on the asset. So now you have two massive demand curves, right? You got ETF demand and utility demand crashing into a supply that is evaporating. That's the moment the market reprices it. Not because your investors out there, not because we get bullish, because the system at that point, it has no choice. When institutions need XRP and they can't find sellers, the market has to lift the price until holders finally say, all right, now I'm gonna part with some, right? Think about it. If the price of XRP is $3 and you're like me and you're like, I'm not selling my XRP at $3, what do they have to do? They gotta raise the price until they find those sellers so they can now become the buyer. And they can keep these ETFs, the inflows incoming, because that's how they're going to make their money. That is what we call price discovery. Look, that's how your shock is going to happen. And that's why this upcoming ETF cycle that we are seeing, that is why it is going to reprice this asset. It's not like the futures nonsense that people are staring at now. Future doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's a piece of paper. It's an IOU going back and forth. It's being passed around. You want to know what matters? The supply matters. How do you get to a higher price of XRP? You take up all of the supply. That is what your ETFs are doing right now. They are eating up the supply of XRP. The more ETFs you get, the more of that supply is taken. And everyone's always like, we're doing 40 million a day off of these ETFs that are out there, but the price doesn't move. And you're right, because the price shouldn't move. Why? Because it's eating away at the over-the-counter supply. Whenever you buy an asset OTC, it's not going to directly affect the price at first. It's just going to keep chewing away. Look, no one has access into these over-the-counter books. I don't have it. Your favorite crypto influencer doesn't have it. The market makers and the exchanges, they know the true supply. We can take guesses at it. Maybe it is 2 billion, maybe it is 5 billion. But when you start running the numbers and you start seeing $40 million a day eating away at the over-the-counter supply, at some point, we are going to run into a shortage. And it's going to happen like this. You're not going to know when it's coming. You're going to wake up and you're going to see massive green candles. And you're going to see the price of XRP just ripping and soaring. That's when you know that over-the-counter books are running dry. That is when you know they are going to the public order books and they are buying the XRP because they need it to serve their ETFs and to serve their institutional clients. I said it before and I'll say it again. They don't care about us retail. They care about the institutions. They care about their Wall Street buddies. And if those Wall Street buddies of theirs, if they want exposure to XRP through an ETF, you know what they're going to do? They're going to get us out. They're going to buy our XRP because they won't be able to get it from the over-the-counter books anymore. So they're going to have to go to the public order book. And I know, and you know, you're not selling your XRP for $2, for $3, or $5. They're going to have to come in with a very sexy and a very appealing offer where it's going to make me think about putting my XRP up for sale for them to buy it. Because once they buy it, we're not getting it back at the prices that we bought it at. We're going to be buying back at a lot higher. We will be priced out of XRP as an asset. The institutions are out there. They're chewing up the over-the-counter. Doesn't seem like it to you or me because the price isn't moving, but it's happening every single day. It is happening. And the more ETFs that come to life, the quicker it is going to happen. Pay attention, folks. Don't let them get you distracted. Don't let them shake you out of your position. Look, if this video brought you value, hit that like button for me so more people can wake up to what's going on out there. Drop a comment down below. Where do you think the price of XRP goes once all of these spot ETFs come to life? We currently got 4. You can say 5 if you want to count Rex Osprey, which is a hybrid model. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. This is Ripple Winkle, better known as Ripple Van Winkle. I'm breaking down a part of the crypto that the mainstream media, they're not going to understand until it's too late. I'll see all y'all in the next one.